Well, hi there. Welcome to ChessBase Workshop. My name is Steve Lopez. Thanks for clicking on that link and joining us. We're continuing a look at ChessBase 11, some of the new features in the software. And this is a really cool feature that comes with a story. Back in the day, way back when, back in the mid-90s, early 90s, grandmasters were begging ChessBase not to put a particular feature into the software. And what that feature was the ability to create opening books. Now, you would wonder why top players would not want that. I'll tell you why, and this is something you may never have thought of in creating an opening book, and that is that if you do a search for all the players' games as white, for example, you could take those games and make a book out of them, plug them into Fritz, and practice against that particular player's opening repertoire. That's incredibly useful preparation against a particular player that you may be facing in the future. We had an internal utility. We had it in-house. It wasn't in the software. It was the ability to create opening books. We've had that kicking around since around 1990 or 91. In fact, I used it extensively back in the day. But that was we were asked not to put that in the software. Unfortunately, for the big boys, it's in there now. It's something that you can do. It's never been easier to go into ChessBase and prepare against a particular opponent. There used to be several different features that you could use to prepare for an opponent that have all been kind of bundled together in ChessBase 11 as a new feature. I'm going to show you how this works. Let's go to the Mega Database, for example. Double click on it to bring up the entire game list for it. And then we will go in and go to the Players tab. Of course, you have a bunch of tabs across top of your game list. By the way, I have covered this feature previously in another video kicking around out there on the internet that I did for a particular ChessBase vendor, but I was limited in what I could do. I was given a 9-minute time limit. This is going to take a little bit longer because I'm going to show you several different applications of this, by the way. But anyway, once you're in this game list, you've got a bunch of tabs across the top. One of them is Players. Click on the Players tab. Now, I've done this before. I was going to pick on Vishy Anand here, Viswanathan Anand, because he's got 2,699 games in this database. This is the player index. You can scroll up and down this list, and every player who is in the Mega Database is in here, has an entry. Even if it's somebody who's only played one game, they're in here. Find the player that you want. In this case, we're going to look at Vishy Anand, and what we're going to do now is click on one of these two buttons up here at the top. There are two buttons. One is Prepare Against White. The other is Prepare Against Black. Click on, for example, Prepare Against White. After a few moments, what the software does, it goes in and it finds all of that player's games where he has the white pieces, and it will pull up not only a scrolling list over here of all the opponents, where you could just click on a game, for example, and be able to play through it just by double clicking, bring it up in another window. What you have here, the meat of it, is right here in the center, which is the reference pane, and what the reference pane shows is what he plays as white. This is what Vishy tends to play. We see that he plays e4 a great deal of the time, 1,146 games where he plays the pawn to e4 as his opening move, d2, d4 a little bit less, and then you have all the other moves down here kind of as also rans. So with one click, you can actually look at a player's opening repertoire. If you click Prepare Against Black, it'll do the same thing, but in reverse, in this case, you're seeing his opponent's moves as white. So, for example, if you were to click on e2, e4, now you have what he tends to play as black. He plays the Sicilian a great deal. Double king pawn openings a little bit less, and the Caro-Kann a little bit less than that. So that gives you basically a couple click access to any player's opening repertoire. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, I realize the majority of the people who watch these videos, the majority of the people, as I've been saying for years in my articles, the majority of the people I've been writing for, that I've been doing videos for, are not top-level players. What are the applications for the average club-level player? There are applications here, and I'm going to show you one of them here by closing this window and moving on to the Correspondence Database. This is a godsend for correspondence players. If you're playing even internet correspondence, I'm going to show you an example right now. I don't mean to pick on this particular individual. That's not my intent here. I just picked him out of the blue just because he's got a ton of games in here. Click on the Players tab, and we have somehow it jumped back up top. Let me scroll down and find him again. Not quite there yet. As I said, I'm not picking on this fellow. Whoop, I just passed him. A fellow named Peter Willoughby has 376 games in the Correspondence Database. Correspondence Database is games from top-level correspondence chess. It's also games from internet chess leagues. Mr. Willoughby is not a terribly high-rated player. He's an average player, at least according to his ELO on these lists. However, if you were to play in an internet correspondence chess tournament, let's say a double round robin where you play 2 games against each player, you may find yourself facing Mr. Willoughby. So what you can do is click on Prepare Against White and start preparing for your game as a black player. You would see that he plays E2 to E4 most of the time. And then you can look at all the different responses, see what he's played against, and how well he has fared against each of these different responses. Then in your other game, where you would have the white pieces, you can look at his repertoire as black. You can see that he's primarily played against E2, E4. And if you are a double king pawn or a king pawn player yourself, you can click on it and see what he generally plays in reply. He plays the French a fair little bit here, E7 to E6. So you can expect to see the French, possibly a double king pawn opening as well. However, notice also you have a column for last played. We can see that he stopped playing the French in 2008, and in the last couple of years he's gone more toward double king pawn openings and the Sicilian. So here again, you've got a lot of information here that if you had to go through and go digging around in books or digging around online or digging around in magazines or whatever the forum is, it would take you hours and hours to compile this information. You can do it with a couple of clicks. What's the third application I was talking about? For the average club player, it's simply this. You should be writing down the moves to all your games. If you're not, you're missing out. Because if you have Fritz or Rivka or any of our playing programs, if you write down the moves to your games, you can have the playing program analyze your game afterward and point out your mistakes. We've been over this and over this in articles and videos through the years. You should be writing down the moves to every game that you play. Whether it is a club game, whether it's a Skittles game, whether you take your chess set down to the tavern on a Friday night and play some people, write down all the moves to all of your games. Then you put them into a database. That way you can have Fritz and Rivka analyze them. That's the main thing, but the secondary thing that you can do, very simply, is this. You can look at your opponent's repertoire. Over time, you're going to be playing the same people over and over again, whether it's at a chess club. One time I ran chess tournaments in West Virginia. We had a monthly tournament, which was almost like a little chess club because we tended to see the same people month after month. And over time, I began to notice patterns in my opponent's play. There were certain people that played particular openings over and over again. You could bank on it. Certain people would always play the Pyrrhic, or they would always play a double king pawn opening. In my case, I was very predictable. If you played E4 against me, I always played the Caro-Kann. That was my favorite opening. And you could go in and see what your opponents played against you in previous games, get an idea maybe of what to throw against them, and the next time you play them, then maybe something they haven't seen before. At least they haven't seen it from you. So that's another thing. This is also very useful for the club player. Over time, you build up a large database. I have a database of several hundred games from a chess club that I once belonged to, and I used to use this I used to make trees of my opponent's games. I used to pull up a particular guy as white, make a tree of his games, and see what he typically played as white, what his typical opening moves were, and what he played in response to me, and I would try to find ways to outwit him in the opening. That's what this will do for you. If this same feature, what it will do is if you create a database of your own games, and if you can catch games from people after a tournament, hey, when you're done with that score sheet, can I have it? You can put together a nice database of games with people that you primarily play against, both casually and in tournaments, and find things about their play using the prepare against white and prepare against black buttons. The way you get to it, once again, is you double click on a particular database to open up the game list, click on the player tab, scroll up and down to find the player that you want, and once you have them highlighted in this left hand pane, you can click prepare against white or prepare against black and get a handle on that player's opening repertoire. It is a really, really cool function, and it's a new one in ChessBase 11. I think this by itself is worth the price of admission. If you're a ChessBase 10 owner, this is worth the upgrade right here. If you're a regular tournament player, or especially if you're a correspondence player, you can get a world of information this way. Well, that's it for ChessBase Workshop. I'm Steve Lopez. Until next time, please have fun.